hijacking a plane in Belize. Used to be a teacher in the St. Louis region.
Hijacking involving Americans in the Central American country of Belize. Police say an American citizen hijacked a small plane at knife point. Here's ABC's Matt Rivers.
We talked to one of his former students who was completely shocked by this news.
To our top story, that international terror in the skies over Belize is now hitting home.
What the hell happened to the skies in 2025? Planes crashing, deadly collisions, near misses at major airports. Now, a hijacking mid-flight in Belize? This year feels like a nightmare. And for 12 people on a small domestic flight, that nightmare became terrifyingly real. It was supposed to be a peaceful ride over paradise. Crystal blue water, a one-pilot plane, and a short hop to San Pedro. But someone brought a knife on board, and the fight for control turned deadly. One passenger never walked off that plane, and the others? They'd never forget what happened at 2,000 feet. This is the story of Tropic Air Flight 711, a flight that was hijacked. Not in some far-off war zone, but in paradise. Before diving in the details, go ahead and quickly hit that subscribe button. Because the skies aren't that calm and serene as they seem to be. Belize, a tropical sanctuary where time seems to slow down. Here, the skies are usually calm, the mornings are quiet, and the only thing most passengers worry about is what drink to order once they land. April 17, 2025, was just like that, at least at first. At the Corozal Airport, Belize, a modest hub serving domestic flights, passengers began arriving early. Some were tourists headed to San Pedro for a beach weekend. Others, locals returning home. Among them, a former U.S. serviceman traveling with family, and a man no one seemed to notice. Tropic Air Flight 711 was a short domestic route, a 20-minute hop across the sea. The aircraft, a Cessna Grand Caravan, seating just 14 passengers and one pilot. No flight attendants, no metal detectors, no locked cockpit doors. In small aircraft like this, everything feels more personal, more relaxed. You can see the ocean through both windows. You can feel the propellers in your chest. It's flying, stripped to its bones. It was 8:17 a.m. when the plane took off. Its destination? John Greif II Airport, a small domestic terminal on the island of San Pedro. However, just 6 minutes after being airborne, the worst was the truth for everyone. The aircraft began squawking 7700, the international transponder code for a general emergency. It's a signal no pilot uses lightly. When air traffic control sees 7700, it means something's gone terribly wrong. Moments later, the plane made a sudden turn, a hard bank over the Caribbean Sea, and began circling erratically. It wasn't heading toward San Pedro anymore. It wasn't heading toward anything. As panic unfolded inside the aircraft, the pilot reached out for help. Not just from air traffic control, but from anyone in the sky who could see them. Nearby, a tour helicopter from Astrum Helicopter Tours was in the area. The pilot of Flight 9 N711 asked them and any other aircraft within visual range to keep eyes on the plane. They weren't just tracking a flight anymore. They were witnessing a hijacking unfold in real time. Inside the cabin, the situation had deteriorated fast. The hijacker was a 49-year-old U.S. national and military veteran, Akinyele Sawa Taylor Had, who pulled out a knife mid-flight. Not a small blade, a real weapon. He moved aggressively, targeting the front of the aircraft. His demands? Unclear. But one thing was certain. He wanted the pilot to fly the plane out of the country. Where? Why? No one knew. But this wasn't a cry for attention. This was commandeering. 3 passengers were injured, including the pilot. Others scrambled to the back of the plane, desperately trying to stay out of reach. But this wasn't a jetliner with rows to disappear into. This was a metal tube, no more than 12 feet across, 20,000 feet above the sea. The plane flew over Belize City, circling for what felt like eternity. In reality, it was over an hour and a half, and nearly 2 full tanks of fuel spent dodging death in the sky. And then it began to descend. Running low on fuel and options, the pilot managed to guide the aircraft toward Belize City. It touched down hard, wounded, desperate, and with a killer still on board. And then, all hell broke loose. On the tarmac, the hijacker began stabbing again, lashing out at the nearest passengers. Screams echoed across the airstrip. But one passenger wasn't just running. He was responding. He was licensed to carry a firearm. And in that moment, surrounded by chaos, he drew his weapon and fired. The hijacker was pronounced dead at the scene. The passengers, all alive, some bleeding, all in shock, were evacuated and rushed to medical care. The 3 injured victims were taken to a nearby hospital. Authorities later identified the assailant as Akinyele Sawa Taylor, a 49-year-old U.S. military veteran with no known history of violence. His motive? Still unclear. He made no formal statement. He left no note, no manifesto. Investigators haven't ruled out terrorism, and for now, his reasons remain as mysterious as his end was violent. One thing is certain. For those on board Flight 9N711, paradise turned to panic in less than 6 minutes. And survival came down to one impossible decision, made at the barrel of a gun. Within hours of the hijacking, the story exploded across headlines worldwide. A U.S. citizen, a military veteran, killed in an attempted hijacking. Mid-air, mid-knife attack, stopped by another American passenger with a legal firearm. It was a story too explosive to ignore. Back in Washington, officials scrambled to respond. The U.S. Embassy in Belize confirmed the identity of the hijacker, but offered little else. No known affiliations, no travel alerts, no existing red flags. Inside government circles, questions turned to protocol. How does a former serviceman board a plane with a weapon in a country allied with the United States? Was this a one-off tragedy or a sign of something larger, more systemic? Publicly, the U.S. expressed sympathy, praised the bravery of the armed passenger, and promised to assist. Privately, intelligence agencies dug deeper. Terrorism has not been ruled out. But even if it wasn't terrorism, the fear it unleashed was real. Across the world, small regional airports operate quietly, away from the spotlight of major international terminals. No TSA lines, no X-ray machines, no hardened checkpoints, just short flights, familiar faces, and the kind of travel that feels more like a bus ride than a flight. But that simplicity comes at a cost. In countries like Belize, these tiny airports are vital, connecting remote communities, transporting medicine, food, and school children. They're more than airports, they're arteries, lifelines, and yet most of them have no formal security, no guards, no scanners, no real way to stop someone like Akinyele Sawa Taylor from stepping aboard with a weapon. That was the quiet danger. And now, it's loud. April 17th exposed something raw. That even the most peaceful flight can become a battlefield in seconds. That even a 12-seat aircraft can become the stage for terror. That even a paradise can be pierced by violence. In the weeks since, authorities in Belize have promised change. New protocols, more oversight, maybe even new funding. But for now, much of the region still flies on faith. Because in these skies, safety isn't always guaranteed. Not by the size of the plane, not by the number of passengers, not by the calm before takeoff. A knife made it on board. Lives were nearly lost. And it was only the presence and the split-second action of another passenger that kept this from becoming a massacre. Flight 9, N711 is over. But the questions it raised about security, about trust, about who we fly with, are still climbing toward their answers. And until they are, every flight from a small airport now carries more than luggage. It carries a warning. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.